Welcome to our deep dive into the due diligence framework under Indian mergers and acquisitions law. In this video, we'll unravel how due diligence forms the backbone of every transaction, shaping everything from deal structure to risk allocation. Whether you're a student, professional, or just curious about M&A, this series will guide you through the methodology, statutory hooks, and practical tools that define due diligence in India. Let's begin by understanding why due diligence is not just a checklist, but a discipline that connects factual findings to legal consequences and commercial outcomes. This part of the treatise builds on the foundations laid in earlier sections. Parts II to V covered transaction structures, company law, securities law, and competition law. Now Part VI shifts focus to the diligence process that precedes and shapes all those choices. Unlike previous parts, this section is methodology-driven, emphasizing how each diligence item is anchored to a specific legal reason. This approach ensures that every finding is mapped to a statutory or commercial consequence, making the process both rigorous and relevant. Diligence in Indian M&A is more than a procedural step, it's a discipline. The process is shaped by professional convention, market practice, and firm-specific methodology rather than just statutes. Where statutory provisions are relevant, they're flagged with care. The key is that diligence isn't just about discovery, it's about mapping each finding to legal or commercial rationale. This ensures that the diligence exercise is not only thorough, but also actionable for deal team. Legal due diligence serves four distinct functions: valuation input, deal structuring input, conditions precedent and walkaway input, and risk allocation input. Each finding must be mapped to one or more of these functions. For example, identifying contingent liabilities affects valuation, while discovering regulatory noncompliance might influence deal structure or trigger a walkaway. The discipline lies in this mapping, ensuring that findings are not just listed but are tied to specific deal decisions. Scope of legal due diligence in Indian M&A is broad and multifaceted. It covers corporate and constitutional documents, material contracts, litigation and regulatory proceedings, real and intellectual property, employment and labor compliance, regulatory licenses, environmental compliance, related party transactions, insurance, and data protection. Each workstream is explored in depth, ensuring that no material risk is overlooked. The scope is tailored to the transaction, reflecting both statutory requirements and market practice. Modern Indian M&A due diligence is conducted through a virtual data room (VDR). The target uploads requested documents against a structured diligent request list. Data room management carries legal significance, especially for listed companies, where sharing unpublished price-sensitive information must comply with SEBI regulations. This is operationalized through non-disclosure agreements, information sharing logs, and adherence to the target's code of fair disclosure. Proper data room management is critical for both compliance and efficiency. Diligence request list is organized by workstream and circulated as a structured questionnaire. As documents are uploaded, the diligence team raises follow-up queries through Q&A log. This log becomes part of the deal record and can be crucial in later disputes over disclosure adequacy. The process ensures that all material issues are surfaced and addressed, and that the diligence exercise is both comprehensive and well-documented. Diligence findings are consolidated into a red flag report, focusing on material issues rather than a narrative of every document reviewed. Each issue is cross-referenced to its legal or commercial significance, quantifiable exposure, and recommended treatment, such as price adjustment, condition precedent, indemnity, or no action. This approach ensures that decision-makers focus on what truly matters, streamlining the path from diligence to deal execution. Legal due diligence reports are issued with express reliance parties, usually the acquirer and its financing sources, and scope limitations. These limitations might include review restricted to documents in the data room, no independent verification of management representations, and materiality thresholds. Such limitations are not mere formalities, they define the diligence provider's liability and must be clearly understood by deal teams relying on the report. Well-designed diligence checklist doesn't treat every item as equally important. Instead, each item is mapped to a specific statutory or doctrinal consequence identified elsewhere in the treatise. This mapping ensures that diligence is focused and relevant, surfacing issues that have a direct impact on the transaction's legal and commercial outcomes. The checklist is organized by workstream, with cross-references to the underlying legal rationale. Diligence on corporate and capital structure covers shareholding patterns, articles of association, related party transactions, financial assistance, and company status. Each item is checked for statutory triggers, such as SEBI open offer thresholds, transfer restrictions, Section 67 financial assistance risk, and eligibility for fast-track mergers. It ensures that the transaction structure is compliant and that all necessary consents and disclosures are identified early. Material contracts are reviewed for change of control clauses, assignability, non-compete undertakings, and financing agreements. The diligence team checks whether contracts require novation or consent, and whether any non-compete or exclusivity undertakings could impact post-acquisition integration. Financing agreements are scrutinized for acceleration or consent triggers that could affect deal completion or require escrow arrangement. Pending investigations, regulatory proceedings, and enforcement history are key diligence items. These must be disclosed in scheme affidavits and can influence both deal structure and risk allocation. For example, ongoing CCI investigations or SEBI enforcement history may trigger contingent liabilities or affect eligibility for regulatory exemptions. Tax assessments and appeals are also reviewed for their impact on net worth and indemnity scope. Employment and labor diligence covers workman status, management retention, and statutory benefit compliance. The classification of employees affects retrenchment obligations and continuity of service in asset acquisitions. Retention arrangements are especially relevant for earn-out structures, while provident fund and gratuity compliance are critical for both share and asset deals. Unfunded liabilities must be identified and allocated appropriately. Diligence on real and intellectual property includes title verification, lease assignability, IP ownership chain, and registration status. For asset acquisitions, each property interest typically requires its own conveyance instrument. IP developed by founders or contractors must be properly assigned to the target. Stamp duty exposure is also quantified early, as it can significantly affect transaction efficiency and cost. Every material license or permit is identified, along with its transferability on change of control. Sector-specific approvals, such as those from RBI, IRDAI, or DUT, are factored into the transaction timeline. Compliance with FEMA and sectoral caps is checked, especially for targets with foreign investment history. This ensures that the deal does not create downstream compliance risks for the acquirer. Financial due diligence, typically conducted by accountants, runs parallel to legal diligence. It examines the quality of earnings, net working capital, net debt, and customer concentration. The goal is to normalize earnings, set working capital targets, and identify all debt-like items that affect valuation. This financial analysis feeds directly into the red flag report, ensuring that all material financial risks are surfaced and addressed. Tax due diligence reviews historical compliance across direct and indirect taxes, including transfer pricing, GST, and withholding tax. Open assessment years, pending appeals, and aggressive tax positions are identified. This analysis informs the choice of deal structure, as different structures carry different tax implications for both buyer and seller. Indirect transfer exposure is also assessed for offshore holding structure. For slump sale structures, tax diligence must verify the accuracy of the books used for Section 50B net worth computation. An incorrect net worth figure can affect both the seller's capital gains and the buyer's cost basis. This step is critical for ensuring that the transaction is tax efficient and that both parties are protected from future disputes over valuation. For deals involving offshore holding structures, tax diligence assesses potential indirect transfer exposure under Explanation 5 to Section 9(1)(I) of the Income Tax Act. This is especially relevant where the target has undergone offshore restructuring. Proper assessment ensures that any latent tax liabilities are identified and addressed before the transaction proceeds. Accounting diligence evaluates how the transaction will be accounted for under Indian accounting standards, especially IND AS 103. It distinguishes between common control and non-common control combinations, affecting whether fair valuation or goodwill recognition is required. This analysis is distinct from legal structuring but critical for post-completion financial reporting. Best practice is to consolidate legal, financial, and tax diligence findings into a single red flag report or executive summary. This ensures that deal decision-makers see the complete risk picture, with findings organized by priority, such as deal breaker, price adjustment, indemnity only, or disclose and proceed. This integrated approach prevents critical issues from being overlooked in siloed reports. Once diligence findings are consolidated, each material issue is addressed through price adjustment, condition precedent, specific indemnity, general representations and warranties, disclosure against warranties, or in rare cases walk away. These mechanisms are deployed individually or in combination, ensuring that all identified risks are properly allocated between buyer and seller. Price adjustment is used to reflect quantified exposures, such as a working capital shortfall or a known liability. The purchase price or working capital peg is adjusted accordingly, ensuring that the buyer is not overpaying for identified risks. This mechanism is a direct link between diligence findings and deal economics. Certain findings may require resolution before closing, such as obtaining a regulatory consent or settling a litigation matter. These are set as conditions precedent in the transaction documents. If not satisfied, they can delay or even terminate the deal, ensuring that critical risks are addressed before completion. Specific indemnity is a contractual promise by the seller to compensate the buyer for losses arising from a named issue. This is used for known risks that are not covered by general warranties. The indemnity is typically dollar for dollar and may not be subject to the general limitations applicable to other claims. General representations and warranties are contractual statements about the target, breach of which gives rise to a warranty claim. These cover unknown or undisclosed risks and are subject to negotiated limitations such as caps, baskets, and survival periods. They provide broad protection for the buyer against unforeseen issues. Seller can disclose specific facts against warranties in a disclosure letter or schedule. If a fact is fairly disclosed, it cannot form the basis of a warranty claim. This creates a tension. Sellers want to disclose as much as possible while buyers seek specific, clear disclosures. General disclosure clauses are often heavily negotiated to ensure fairness. In rare cases, a diligence finding may be so severe, such as evidence of fraud or an unresolvable title defect, that the only appropriate response is to walk away from the transaction. This option underscores the importance of thorough diligence and clear risk allocation mechanisms. Indian SPA practice operates on a fair disclosure principle. Facts disclosed with sufficient particularity are treated as known to the buyer and cannot be the basis for a warranty claim. Both sides must ensure that disclosures are specific and not buried in generic data, as disputes often arise over whether disclosure was truly fair. General disclosure clauses, which deem everything in the data room as disclosed, are a frequent negotiation battleground. Buyers typically resist broad clauses, insisting on specific warranty-by-warranty disclosure. This ensures that diligence teams can reasonably connect disclosures to warranties during the review process. Indian SPAs typically include warranties covering corporate capacity, capital structure, financial statements, compliance with law, title to assets, litigation, tax compliance, employment, and environmental matters. Each category traces back to a corresponding diligence workstream, ensuring comprehensive coverage of material risks. Indemnity claims are typically subject to a cap, a maximum aggregate liability, often expressed as a percentage of the purchase price. Fundamental warranties such as title and tax may have higher or uncapped liability due to their central importance. This structure balances buyer protection with seller risk. A basket or threshold sets a minimum aggregate quantum of claims before the buyer can claim indemnity. There are tipping baskets, where the full amount becomes claimable once the threshold is crossed, and deductible baskets where only the excess is claimable. This filters out immaterial claims and streamlines the claims process. Survival period sets the time limit within which a warranty claim must be notified. General warranties might survive 12-24 months, while tax warranties often last until the expiry of the statutory limitation period. Fundamental warranties may survive indefinitely, reflecting their importance to the transaction. Escrow or holdback arrangements involve withholding a portion of the purchase price to fund potential indemnity claims. This is commonly used where a specific, quantifiable risk has been identified but not yet crystallized. It provides security for the buyer while allowing the deal to proceed. It's important to distinguish escrow for indemnity from the SASD regulations escrow, which is required for open offers under SEBI rules. The latter secures performance of the open offer, not buyer protection against seller warranty breach. Understanding this distinction is crucial for proper deal structuring. Representation and warranty insurance (W&I insurance) is increasingly used in Indian M&A. An insurer assumes some or all of the seller's warranty liability, allowing a cleaner exit for the seller while the buyer retains recourse. The insurer conducts its own diligence, and coverage is excluded for matters fairly disclosed or reasonably discoverable. The disclosure schedule becomes doubly significant when W&I insurance is used. Insurers generally exclude coverage for any matter that was, or should have been, identified through diligence and fairly disclosed. This reinforces the importance of a robust diligence to disclosure to warranty chain in risk allocation. Whether risk is allocated through indemnity, insurance, or price adjustment, the diligence to disclosure to warranty chain is the analytical backbone of M&A risk allocation. This integrated approach ensures that all material risks are surfaced, allocated, and managed, providing clarity and protection for both parties. Part VI of the treatise has covered due diligence as a discrete discipline, including methodology, statutory mapping, financial and tax diligence, and the full risk allocation toolkit. Each element is designed to ensure that diligence findings are actionable and that risk is properly allocated in the transaction documents. This comprehensive approach is essential for successful M&A execution in India. With due diligence covered, the treatise will next address cross-border M&A, including FEMA and FDI/ODI rules. This builds on the inbound and outbound merger material and will develop the full framework for foreign investment into and from India. Stay tuned as we explore these complex and dynamic topics in the next part. Recap: due diligence in Indian M&A is a structured, methodology-driven process that connects factual findings to legal and commercial outcomes. The process is comprehensive, covering legal, financial, and tax aspects, and is anchored in statutory and market practice. The ultimate goal is to ensure that all material risks are identified, allocated, and managed effectively. For practitioners, understanding the due diligence framework is essential for structuring, negotiating, and executing M&A transactions. Each step from data room management to risk allocation requires attention to detail and a clear understanding of both legal and commercial implications. Mastery of this framework is key to successful deal-making. Thank you for joining us on this comprehensive journey through the due diligence framework in Indian M&A law. We hope this breakdown has clarified the methodology, scope, and practical application of due diligence. Stay tuned for the next part, where we'll tackle cross-border M&A and the regulatory landscape for foreign investment. Until then, keep learning and stay curious.